at least conceptually, I think what they ended up doing was at least slightly more artistically bold, for sure.
Well, what was the theme? When has that ever worked? When have they ever just been like, we're going to replace, like James Bond? They're like, we're going to replace James Bond with a female lead. You think that that's going to just like go over swell? You know, that people are just going to be like, oh, great, awesome.
Like, I like the idea that media can have lots of different ideas and that kind of thing. I take that to its absolute extremes. I'm generally fine with anything in media. For me, it's typically about execution. So it would have gone down to how it was executed, I guess, and how it was presented.
Well, what about like all the roundhouse kick ladies? You know what I mean? Like the 90, well, like, yeah, so you got a bunch
what is a roundhouse kick?
Well, lady? So you got like all these 90-pound chicks, right?
Yeah,
on screen. And they're like taking on 250-pound dudes and knocking their asses around and just beating the holy crap out of them. You know what I mean? And it just seems so contrived. You know what I mean? And unbelievable. And you're just kind of like, what the hell is going on here?
But I mean, is this not the case in literally everything? Like basically every video game I've ever played, I take about 30 to like, I take like 1,000 shots over the course of a Call of Duty campaign, and like my dude is still alive by the end. Like I don't know, this kind of shit is like, especially when it comes to media that's meant. So I could understand this criticism if it was aiming to be a realistic, right? But when you're talking about something that is strictly fantasy, strictly kind of like escapist, then I don't care. I don't see what the issue is.
But what about the new Last of Us game, right? Like the new Last of Us game, they killed off the main character who everybody loved, and then made the focus on this weird buff, like overly buff chick who just in her revenge plot, and it was just kind of stupid, and the whole thing seemed forced. It seemed contrived. You know what I mean? And then at the end, there's a fight between her and Ellie, right? And they beat the holy shit out of each other. And what is Ellie, like 17 pounds? You know what I mean? It's like the whole thing. So my understanding from that whole thing was that some feminists got a hold of it. You know what I mean? And after the feminists got a hold of it, it's spoilers. Who cares if it's the game's been out forever? So my understanding is that a bunch of feminists got a hold of it and basically wanted to kind of rewrite the plot. You know what I mean? And it kind of ruined the game. And if you have millions of fans, don't you think the developers kind of owe it to them?
Again, maybe a controversial opinion, but no, I don't think artists owe shit to anyone. Their only job is to create art, essentially. And especially, so I hardcore ascribe myself to the school of thought that is from the perspective of, there was I wish I could remember this quote. There was a really good quote that I think it's from an ambient artist called Ryan Eno. I don't want to say it's sure, but he said basically an artist's job isn't to give the people what they want; it's to give the people something they didn't know they wanted, and that is inherently only achievable by pushing boundaries and by experimenting with things. So, to give a Last of Us game that breaks so many of the conventions from what you would expect from a sequel, even if, and for the record, I actually don't like either Last of Us games. They're really not my thing.
Okay, that's already a fail. It's already a fail. No.
The plots are so generic, man. I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's so many more interesting kind of like, I don't know, narrative things you can do, especially with a budget like that. And like I said, I kind of applaud the second one for going for something a little bit out of the ordinary. But it's definitely not comfort food. But yeah, going back to what I said, like, I would need to play The Last of Us 2 to comment on how good I think it is in relation to the first. I think it's interesting that they did something as bold as what they did. I can understand that it may seem like a little bit forced, and I can definitely understand the criticism of someone being unrealistically strong in a universe like The Last of Us. But firstly, I don't think that, from what I've seen anyway, I don't think the woman in that game is unrealistically strong. And secondly, I don't think the universe is overly realistic as for that to be a problem. Maybe Ellie overpowering her at the end, I have no idea what happens. But if that's the case, I could see that perhaps being a bit contrived. But I don't think that's really got a ton to do with, like, I don't know, video game feminism. Maybe it's just like, I don't know, there's plot contrivances and fucking everything. So yeah, that wouldn't surprise
me. My partner asks if you like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I'm so sorry. I actually fucking love Tarantino, but I haven't seen that film yet. I'm sorry, man.
Oh my man. See, I know. This is what we're talking. This is what we're talking about. So back to The Last of Us, right? Back to The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand, right? You can always say, well, this is a fake world, but even fake worlds base themselves around realistic themes, right?
Sure.
That's what makes them believable. What made the first game so good had nothing to do with the fact Pedro says, boot him now. what made the first game so good wasn't the over-the-top violence or the stealth or this kind of thing, or even any of the game mechanics. Those were what made the game good. Was it had the endless time theme of a narrative of a strong father who develops a relationship with a young girl that needs him. That's what the whole theme of that's what made it good. Right? It had nothing to do with any of the blood and the guts and things like that. It had to do with this traditional style storyline that had been integrated into it. Very heavily masculine themes, this kind of thing. So to do a 180 just to kind of give in to whatever the woke media wants, doesn't that seem to you to just kind of be inauthentic, kind of a dirty money grab, kind of bullshit?
No, I would actually really push back on that. For a start, if it was like a dirty money grab, I don't see why they wouldn't have just made The Last of Us again, because people loved that game, and I honestly think it probably would have. I don't know how well the second one sold in relation to the first, but I would be surprised to find out, because there was a lot of pushback and because a lot of people were unhappy with it. I'd be surprised to find out that The Last of Us 2 did as well as it could have potentially done. If they wanted to just make a money grab, I feel like they would have essentially made the first game again and maybe have a tragic ending for Joel at the end, have a lot of the themes you were talking about, have that very traditional kind of like father-daughter dynamic again, like, because we know people like the characters, we know people like the world. So I feel like what they actually ended up doing was, at least conceptually, again, I don't know in execution because I haven't played either of them. Sorry, I played the first one, I haven't played the second one. But in execution, I don't know how it panned out, but at least conceptually, I think what they ended up doing was at least slightly more artistically bold, for sure.
Well, what was the theme?
Well,
like,
I mean,
what was the, you know what I mean? Like, I can tell you the theme from the first one, the whole 9. You know what I mean? Nobody can tell you what the theme was. What was the narrative supposed to be? I
haven't played it, so I
so let me give you I'll give you the Reader's Digest version.
All right, sure, right? Yeah.
The Reader's Digest version. So they make Ellie a lesbian, right? And she does the first half of the entire game with her lesbian lover. Okay. They kill off Joel, the masculine character from the first game, who everybody, basically went through hell with him for, through the whole game. And then the second part, what happens is they focus on, some broad you never heard of ever. And her story is totally uninteresting. It doesn't seem like it's relevant, right? And you have to play her for 17 hours or whatever, whatever the game time is. I don't remember what it was. Okay. Anticlimactic ending, and nobody can understand what the theme was supposed to be. So the thing is like Earthman Brick says, he's like, Anita Sarkeesian had input in The Last of Us Part 2. And she did a lot. And Anita Sarkeesian is a huge, kind of woke gamer feminist. And it just seems to me like, why push that so hard if there's nothing that's thematic? You know what I mean? So I would have to push back on you and say, it sounds to me like they were really trying to kind of cave to the woke mob on this, because nobody can understand the theme. Nobody can understand the story. Nobody can understand it. And there's so many examples of this in media now,
Well, I would push back on that, though. I mean, like you say, nobody can understand it, but I guarantee if I go on Google now and type in Last of Us 2 theme or opinion piece or something, I get there'll be someone dissecting that game for sure and will have gotten a lot out of it, almost without a doubt, just because it's so big. And I mean, you could go into that and kind of tear apart their opinion on it. You could kind of critique maybe some of the ways they're constructing their argument and defending the game, but I mean, to say nobody got anything out of it, I think seems a little extreme, because I'm sure people did. Again, this is something that unfortunately I just haven't played, because it's just very uninteresting to me. So I can't personally speak to this. But yeah, I mean, honestly, even if they did bring in Anita Sarkeesian and try and kind of I don't know, make it more woke, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily seem like a strictly bad thing. There are plenty of properties that I could point to and say this has feminist themes or has things that would be considered quote unquote woke. But I think they're actually really good, and these are the themes. So I don't think that it's
what?
So the one I always go back to. Have you seen the film Arrival?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So
I don't remember it that well, but yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, okay. So I think Arrival is probably my favorite sci-fi of the last 10 years. I think it's like mind-blowingly good.
Was that the Jodie Foster one?
I'm so bad with actors. I'm so sorry, man. It's the first Contact film where they kind of focus more on the linguistic aspect of the alien encounter. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it does. It
Yeah,
does.
so
Give me
you
something
have,
else I know like the back of my hand. What else you got? What else you got that's like feminist thematic that you think is just, you know, wonderful?
I'm into loads of fucking hipster shit, man. I don't know. This is gonna be really hard. Man, I mean, I would honestly, you probably won't have seen the film Under the Silver Lake.
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Hang on one sec. Let me try and.
Is this like all hipster shit 101 or like is that
No. It's not hipster shit 101. It's definitely you got to do a bit of these are the fucking, these are the cherry picks at the back of the tree.
Okay, so one thing I'll concede, right? I'll concede this fact. It makes sense to me that as the United States becomes more demographically versatile, that you would want to focus on more Black superheroes, Hispanic superheroes, and things like this. From a financial standpoint, that makes sense to me because you want the largest demographic you possibly can, right?
Yeah.
So that does make sense to me. But if the feminists are a really small demographic, especially the super feminists. So why we want to focus so much on their themes and the things that they want to produce it's bizarre to me. It makes us kind of think that there must be some kind of agenda going on there. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I guess I just have to disagree because I don't know. I think this is almost like a slightly naive perception of how art's made. At the end of the day, art is made because a bunch of creative people want to go out and do a thing, and they start game studios, they start film studios, they write scripts, they decide to go into acting. Like, regardless of what they do, the way it's made is typically some people that want to express some sort of creativity go into some field and then they influence that field, right? So I really struggle to I struggle to see it as an agenda that's being pushed so much as something that people want to express. If you have a marginalized group in society, whether that be, let's just go with like, I don't know, Black people in America circa like 30 years ago, whatever, right? If you have a Black person who's super interested in filmmaking, they're going to make something about that experience. And I just think that's a lot of what we're getting now. And also the other thing I would say is in regards to kind of like saying that feminism and this like super woke brand of feminism is a small portion of the market. I would definitely agree with that. And I don't think necessarily that the biggest Hollywood films will ever cater to those people exactly. I think, at least from what I've seen, a lot of the large media properties don't typically cater to ultra woke feminist themes. It's usually just like, we're going to have some women in a film. I think actually a great example of this would be the new Ghostbusters. Again, I haven't actually seen it, and I've heard it was dog shit, so I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, but what made it dog shit, though? What made it dog shit?
Well, I haven't seen it, but I would assume it's just lazy writing and lazy jokes.
No, it's because they replaced all the Ghostbusters with women. Come on.
Yes, I don't believe that even slightly.
Of course it is. When has that ever worked? When have they ever just been like, we're going to replace, like James Bond? They're like, we're going to replace James Bond with a female lead. You think that that's going to just like go over swell? That people are just going to be like, oh, great, awesome.
Yeah, I agree. It wouldn't necessarily go over super well or anything, but I don't think that's the integral flaw to the film. In fact, actually, I'll tell you what, a better example, because I've actually seen it and I can talk about it. The Last Jedi. So that got a lot of shit.
Awful.
I actually thought that film, and you'll never fucking hear me say this about a Star Wars film because I fucking hate Star Wars, but I thought it was actually an okay to a slightly good film. Like, I might on a good day give it like a very low 6 out of 10. People complained about that film because it was all about, it was like strong women fucking imposing their shit on men, and all the men were slapped down and emasculated and had to listen to all the women, and they were wrong in the end, and all that shit, right? That film was bad because the plot was fucking stupid, not because of any other feminist themes in it. You could do a female in the position she was in.
But that's what made the plot stupid. What made the plot stupid was the feminist themes in the film. It's like you're disassociating. You're totally disassociating the thing. You're like, look, the plot was stupid. Well, why was the plot stupid?
The plot was stupid because of shit like, what was her name? is it Princess Leia, the Carrie
Yeah.
Fisher?
Yeah.
Like when she was floating out in space, she comes back in an ultra contrived way, and it's like, oh, she's a force user and all this kind of shit. Like that's why it was contrived. I don't.
That
think
wasn't
that,
a scene anybody hated, right? Like
that
the,
was a scene I
Jedi,
hated. That
the
was a super
Jedi loving
fucking scene.
nerds were not like Carrie Fisher using the Force in outer space to hold her breath and go back into a spaceship. That was not what anybody was upset about. People
Okay,
love
one
they
second,
love that scene. What they hated was the dumb broads making stupid decisions the entire film, right? And then when they
But
got called out on the stupid decisions by the strong male leads, they locked the strong male leads up.